Jake Martinez's heart was beating fast as he stared at the alien queen. The crystal walls of her private chamber sparkled around him, making everything look like it was underwater. This was definitely not the maintenance tunnel he was supposed to enter. Queen HFY sat on her floating throne, her silver skin shimmering in the soft blue light. Her 4 eyes, each one a different shade of purple, studied Jake with interest. She was much taller than him, probably 8 feet if she stood up. The guards around her pointed their weapons at Jake, their metal armor making soft clicking sounds as they moved. I'm so sorry, Your Majesty," Jake said, his voice shaking. He held up his keycard. "I thought this was the entrance to Section B maintenance. I'm just a repair worker. I didn't mean to." "Peace, human," Queen HFY said in perfect English, raising one of her 4 hands. Her voice was smooth and calm, like flowing water. "Your fear is unnecessary." The guards lowered their weapons, but they didn't put them away. Jake noticed their antennae were still pointed at him, a sign they didn't trust him. "Tell me, Jake Martinez," the Queen said, looking at his name badge, "how did your maintenance keycard open my private chamber?" Jake looked at the simple plastic card in his hand. It was just a basic maintenance pass, nothing special. "I don't know, Your Majesty. I was running late for my shift, and I thought this was a shortcut through." A guard stepped forward, his armor clanking. "My queen, this human could be a spy. No simple keycard should work on your chamber doors." Queen HFY raised her hand again, and the guard stepped back. "If he were a spy," she said, "would he look so honestly confused?" She turned back to Jake. "Come closer, human. Let me look at you." Jake's legs felt like jelly as he walked forward. The crystal floor was so clear he could see the space station's lower levels through it. Maintenance pipes and electrical lines crossed below like a giant spider web. As he got closer, Jake noticed strange symbols on the walls. They were glowing faintly, changing colors every few seconds. He had seen similar marks in the maintenance tunnels, but never this many in one place. The Queen leaned forward on her floating throne. "You work in maintenance," she said. "Tell me, what do you think of our station's systems?" Jake blinked in surprise. Was the alien queen really asking his opinion? "Well," he said carefully, "the main systems are amazing. The way you've combined human and alien technology is incredible. But..." He stopped, worried about saying too much. "But what?" the Queen asked, looking curious. "Please continue." "The connection points between the 2 types of technology could be better," Jake said. "Sometimes we get power fluctuations because the systems don't talk to each other properly. I've been working on some ideas to fix that, but I'm just a basic repair worker." The Queen's eyes sparkled with interest. "Just a basic repair worker who somehow opened my private chamber door." She turned to one of her guards. "Bring up the station schematics." A hologram appeared in the air between them, showing the space station's layout. Jake could see all the maintenance tunnels he worked in, glowing blue in the 3D image. "These maintenance systems," the Queen said, "they're more important than most people know. They're not just keeping the lights on. They're keeping us all alive out here in space." She looked at Jake closely. "And you understand them better than most." Suddenly, a loud alarm started blaring through the chamber. Red lights flashed on the walls, and the glowing symbols turned dark. "My queen," a guard shouted, "life support is failing in the royal section." The Queen stood up, all 8 feet of her, her silver robes flowing around her. "How long?" 20 minutes until oxygen levels become critical," the guard said. "Our engineers are working on it, but they can't find the problem." Jake looked at the hologram, still floating in the air. He could see the life support systems, and something wasn't right. The connections between the human and alien parts were all wrong, like someone had. "Your Majesty," Jake said, forgetting his fear, "I think I know what's wrong. But you'll have to trust me." Queen HFY looked at him, all 4 of her purple eyes glowing in the red emergency lights. The human who accidentally walked into my chamber wants me to trust him." She was quiet for a moment, then smiled. Perhaps this mistake was not a mistake at all. The guards looked nervous as their queen turned to Jake and said, "Show me what you know, Jake Martinez. Let's see if your wrong door led you to the right place." Jake's hands moved quickly over the alien control panel. The queen and her guards watched as he traced the glowing lines that showed the station's life support system. Red warning lights still flashed around them, and the air was getting thinner. "There," Jake said, pointing to a spot where blue human technology met purple alien systems. "Someone switched the power flow backwards. It's like putting batteries in the wrong way, but much worse." Queen HFY floated closer on her throne, her silver skin reflecting the emergency lights. "Can you fix it?" "Yes, but—" Jake hesitated, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I'll need to go into the maintenance shaft. The real one this time." He tried to smile, but the joke fell flat as another alarm started blaring. 15 minutes until critical failure, a computerized voice announced in both English and the alien language. The Queen's chief guard, Commander Zex, stepped forward. His metal armor made soft clicking sounds as he moved. "My queen, we cannot trust this human with such sensitive access. For all we know, he caused this problem." Jake was about to protest when something caught his eye on the control panel. "Wait a minute." He zoomed in on a section of the diagram. "These markings here, they're maintenance codes, but they're written in human English." The Queen's 4 eyes widened. "Impossible. Only alien engineers have access to those systems." "Not anymore," Jake said. He pointed to a series of numbers scrolling across the screen. "These are Earth dates. Someone's been accessing these systems for weeks, making tiny changes. Changes so small that nobody would notice until they all failed at once," the Queen finished. She turned to Commander Zex. "Send teams to all maintenance junctions. I want every access point checked." 10 minutes until critical failure, the computer reminded them. Jake looked at the dying life support systems, then at the Queen. "Your Majesty, I know I'm just a human who took a wrong turn, but right now I'm also the only one who can read both these systems. Please, let me help." Queen HFY studied him for a long moment. Her lower eyes blinked while her upper eyes remained fixed on Jake's face. Finally, she reached into her robes and pulled out a crystal key. It was shaped like a twisted piece of glass and glowed with its own inner light. "This is a royal override key," she said. "It will give you access to any system on this station. If you betray this trust—" She let the threat hang in the air. "I understand," Jake said, taking the key carefully. It felt warm in his hand, almost alive. Commander Zex wasn't happy. "At least let me send guards with him." "No time," Jake said, already running toward the maintenance shaft. "They'll just slow me down." The shaft was narrow and dark, filled with pipes and wires from both human and alien technology. Jake crawled through quickly, the crystal key lighting his way. As he moved, he noticed something strange. The human access codes weren't just random dates. They formed a pattern. "Your Majesty," he called through his communicator. "I think I know who did this. The dates in the code. They're all days when the human-alien peace talks failed. 5 minutes until critical failure," the computer announced. Jake reached the main junction where all the systems met. What he saw made his blood run cold. The sabotage was worse than he thought. Wires had been crossed and reconnected in ways that shouldn't be possible. Whoever did this knew both technologies intimately. "This isn't just sabotage," he said into his communicator. "It's a message. Look at how the wires are arranged. They form words in alien script." The Queen's voice came back, tense. "What does it say?" Before Jake could answer, all the lights in the shaft went out. Even his crystal key stopped glowing. In the darkness, he heard something moving. Something that shouldn't be in the maintenance shaft with him. "Your Majesty," he whispered, "I don't think I'm alone in here. The computer's voice seemed louder in the darkness. 3 minutes until critical failure. All personnel prepare for emergency protocols. In the pitch black of the maintenance shaft, Jake felt something brush against his leg. The crystal key in his hand suddenly pulsed with a faint light, revealing a face in the darkness. But not a human face, and not like any alien he'd seen on the station before. The Queen's voice crackled through his communicator. "Jake, whatever you do, don't." The transmission cut off, leaving Jake alone in the dark with whatever had found him. "Well," a voice whispered in the darkness, speaking perfect English, "it seems you've taken more than just a wrong turn today, Jake Martinez." In the dark maintenance shaft, Jake held his breath. The crystal key in his hand pulsed weakly, like a dying heartbeat. The face he'd seen wasn't supposed to exist. It belonged to the Shadowers, an alien race that had vanished 50 years ago during the First Contact Wars. "You recognize what I am, don't you?" the voice whispered. The creature moved closer, its skin absorbing what little light remained. "Good. Then you know we are very, very good at keeping secrets." Jake's mind raced. The station's life support was failing, and he was trapped in a maintenance shaft with a supposedly extinct alien. "The sabotage," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This was all to draw someone down here." The Shadower made a sound like distant thunder, perhaps a laugh. "Smart for a maintenance worker, but you weren't supposed to be the one to find us. We were expecting the Queen's engineers." 2 minutes until critical failure, the computer announced cheerfully. The crystal key suddenly grew warmer in Jake's hand. He remembered something he'd seen in the maintenance logs, a strange note about light frequencies and alien biology. Taking a deep breath, he raised the key. "You know what this is?" Jake asked, holding up the royal override key. "It's not just for opening doors." The Shadower's dark form rippled. "A human wouldn't dare." Jake pressed the key against the nearest wall panel. "Queen Xi Lara," he spoke clearly. "Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha 9. The maintenance shaft exploded with brilliant rainbow light. The Shadower screamed, a high metallic sound. Its light-absorbing skin began to crack, revealing patches of iridescent scales underneath. Jake's communicator crackled to life. "Protocol accepted," the Queen's voice rang out. "Jake, hold on." The walls of the maintenance shaft began to shift and move. Panels slid aside, revealing hidden chambers filled with crystalline technology Jake had never seen before. The Shadower tried to retreat, but streams of light from the crystals caught it like a net. 1 minute until critical failure, the computer reminded them. "Your Majesty," Jake called into his communicator as he crawled past the trapped Shadower. "I can see the main junction. But something's wrong. The sabotage isn't just in the computers. They've planted some kind of device." He reached the central hub where all the station's systems connected. In the center sat a black sphere about the size of a basketball. It pulsed with dark energy, sucking in the light around it. "That's Shadower tech," the Queen said. "Jake, listen carefully. That device isn't just shutting down life support. It's harvesting the energy. Every breath we lose makes it stronger. 30 seconds until critical failure." Jake studied the sphere. Thin tentacles of shadow spread from it into the station's systems, like roots growing into soil. "I can't just pull it out," he said. "It's connected to everything." "No," the Queen agreed. "But the royal override key can do more than generate light." The trapped Shadower suddenly laughed. "You'll never figure it out in time, human. When that sphere reaches full power, it will transmit everything it knows about this station to our fleet. Every weakness, every defense system." 20 seconds. Jake looked at the crystal key in his hand. It was glowing brighter now, responding to his touch. Somehow, it felt familiar, like a tool he'd used 1,000 times. "Your Majesty," he said, "I think I understand. This key, it's not alien tech at all, is it? It's both human and alien technology working together." 10 seconds. "Just like you," the Queen said softly. "A bridge between two worlds. Use it, Jake." Jake plunged the crystal key into the black sphere. Light and shadow collided. The sphere cracked, dark energy fighting against the key's glow. Jake felt energy surge through him. Human determination meeting alien power. 5, 4, 3. The sphere shattered. Light flooded the maintenance shaft. The shadower screamed one final time and dissolved into mist. All around the station, systems flickered and came back online. Life support restored, the computer announced. All systems functioning normally. Jake slumped against the wall, exhausted. The crystal key had changed color. Now it shimmered with both light and shadow, transformed by its contact with shadower technology. His communicator crackled. "Jake," the Queen's voice was urgent. The shadower mentioned a fleet. "This isn't over." "No," Jake agreed, looking at his transformed key. "I think it's just beginning. And Your Majesty, there's something else you need to see." When the sphere broke, it left behind data. Lists of names, human names. Someone on our side is helping them. In the distance, alarm klaxons began to sound. But these weren't for life support. These were different, deeper, more urgent. "Battle stations," the computer announced. Unknown vessels detected approaching station perimeter. Jake looked through a small port window in the maintenance shaft. In the darkness of space, shadows were moving. The shadower fleet had arrived, and somewhere on the station, human traders were waiting to help them. "Your Majesty," Jake said, gripping his transformed key, "I think I'm going to need more wrong turns to fix this." The Queen's response was grim. "Then it's fortunate, Jake Martinez, that you have a talent for turning mistakes into miracles." Jake ran through the crystal corridors of the royal section, his transformed key glowing with both light and shadow. Behind him, Commander Zex's armor clinked as the alien guard struggled to keep up. Emergency lights painted everything in pulses of red and blue. "The Queen is waiting in the emergency command center," Zex said. "Though I still don't understand why she trusts you so much." Jake looked at his key, now swirling with mixed energies. "That makes two of us." They reached a wall that looked solid but wasn't. Jake's key pulsed, and the crystal surface melted away, revealing the station's secret command center. Inside, Queen Xilara stood before a massive holographic display, showing the approaching shadower fleet. Their ships looked like holes in space, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "Jake," the Queen said without turning, "what you're about to see is classified beyond any human clearance." She waved her hand, and the hologram changed. Now it showed Earth, but not as Jake had ever seen it. Strange, glowing lines covered the planet's surface, forming patterns like the ones he'd seen in the maintenance tunnels. "Those are ley lines," the Queen explained. "Energy paths that cross your world. Humans can't see them, but they're there. And they're exactly the same as the power channels running through this station." Jake's eyes widened. "You built this station based on Earth's design." "No." The Queen's four eyes blinked in sequence. "Earth was built based on this design, or rather, modified to match it. By them." She pointed to the shadower ships. The hologram zoomed in, showing ancient Earth. Jake watched in amazement as massive ships, similar to the ones now approaching, descended on prehistoric Earth. They released clouds of dark energy that sank into the planet, creating the ley lines. "The Shadowers didn't vanish 50 years ago," Commander Zex said. "They'd been gone for 50,000 years. Until now." Suddenly, Jake's transformed key began to vibrate. It pulled him toward another hologram, showing the station's maintenance tunnels. The tunnel's layout. It was exactly like the ley lines on Earth. "They're not here to attack the station," Jake realized. "They're here to activate it. The whole station is some kind of giant machine." The Queen nodded grimly, and the human traders helping them. "Look at this." A new image appeared. Security footage showed humans in maintenance uniforms placing small black devices throughout the station. Jake recognized one of them. Sarah Chen, his supervisor. Sarah's been working here for 10 years, Jake said. Why would she? His key suddenly projected its own hologram, a DNA strand spinning in the air. But this DNA was strange, partially made of shadow energy. Because she's one of them, the Queen said softly. Some humans are descendants of shadowers who stayed behind on Earth. They look human, but their DNA is different. They've been waiting all this time, maintaining the ley lines, preparing for this moment. An alarm blared. On the main hologram, the shadower ships had stopped. They formed a perfect circle around the station, like a black crown in space. My Queen. A guard burst in. We're detecting energy buildups in all maintenance sections. The black devices are activating. Jake looked at his key, then at the station schematic. The devices Sarah planted. They're exactly where the ley lines cross on Earth. They're turning the station into a giant key. A key to what? Commander Zex demanded. The Queen's silver skin paled. To Earth itself. The Shadowers didn't modify Earth for fun. They turned it into a weapon. And now they want to turn it on. Jake's transformed key suddenly shot a beam of light at the main hologram. Where light met shadow, new images formed. Ancient alien text, mixed with modern human code. I can read it, Jake said, surprised. The key is translating. It's a countdown sequence. When the station fully activates, Earth's ley lines will activate too, the Queen finished, releasing enough energy to tear the planet apart. Commander Zex raised his weapon. Then we evacuate and destroy the station. No, Jake said, studying the ancient text. Look at these power readings. If the station explodes, it'll trigger the sequence anyway. He turned to the Queen. But maybe that's not the only way. You said this key is both human and alien technology working together, just like me being here was no accident. The Queen's eyes widened. The maintenance access that brought you to my chamber wasn't a malfunction. Jake nodded. Sarah didn't count on her own employee having the one thing that could stop her plan. The ability to see both sides, human and alien, light and shadow. The station shuddered as more devices activated. Outside, the shadower ships began to pulse with dark energy. Sarah Chen's voice came over the station's speakers. You can't stop this, Jake, she said. It's been planned for 50,000 years. Look at your key. Accept who you really are. Your DNA. You're one of us too. Jake looked at his transformed key, seeing his reflection in its swirling surface. His eyes had changed, now swirling with the same mix of light and shadow as the key. You're right about one thing, Sarah, he said. I am special, but not because of DNA. He turned to the Queen. Your Majesty, I need to get to this central maintenance hub, and I need you to tell me everything you know about human evolution. The Queen smiled, all four eyes gleaming. Finally, someone asks the right question. Above them, the shadower ships began their final approach, and Earth's fate hung in the balance of a maintenance worker who had opened the wrong door. Jake stood in the central maintenance hub, his transformed key pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. The Queen's words echoed in his mind. Humans hadn't just evolved. They'd been engineered, a perfect blend of Earth life and shadower genetics, created to be caretakers of the planet's ley lines. 10 minutes until full station activation, the computer announced as Sarah Chen's black devices continued their deadly countdown. The hub's walls were alive with swirling patterns of light and shadow. Through the massive window, Jake could see the shadower ships forming a perfect geometric pattern around the station. It looked like a giant black snowflake against the stars. Your DNA is awakening. Sarah's voice came through the speakers. She sounded almost kind. You can feel it, can't you, Jake? The station's singing to you. She was right. Every crystal panel, every shadow-filled corner seemed to whisper to him now. His reflection in the window showed his eyes swirling with mixed energies. just like his key. "I found your personnel file, Sarah," Jake said, buying time as he studied the hub systems. "You've worked at 15 different space stations over the past 100 years. You don't age, do you?" Sarah laughed. "Neither will you, once you accept your heritage. We're the children of two worlds, Jake, human bodies with shadower souls." The Queen's voice crackled through Jake's communicator. "The devices are linked. If you can access the main control crystal, you might be able to." Suddenly, the crystal key pulled Jake's hand toward a seemingly blank wall. Where it touched, the wall dissolved, revealing the hidden chamber. Inside stood a massive crystal pillar that pulsed with both light and darkness. "The station's heart," Jake whispered. "Your Majesty." Commander Zex's voice was urgent through the comm. "The shadower ships are changing formation. They're forming some kind of key in space." Jake stepped into the chamber. The crystal pillar responded to his presence, patterns of light and shadow dancing across its surface. They formed images, Earth's history, but not the version he knew. He saw shadowers walking among ancient humans, teaching them to build pyramids aligned with ley lines. He saw hybrid children born with eyes that could see both worlds. And he saw the true purpose of Earth's transformation. Not a weapon, but something far stranger. "Sarah," Jake called out, "you're wrong about the station. It's not a key to destroy Earth. It's a key to wake it up." The hidden chamber hummed with power. Jake's transformed key floated out of his hand, drawn to the crystal pillar. 5 minutes until full station activation, the computer warned. Sarah's voice turned sharp. "Don't interfere with what you don't understand." "But I do understand," Jake said, watching his key merge with the pillar. "The shadowers didn't turn Earth into a weapon. They turned it into a cocoon. Humanity isn't just their creation. We're their children. And parents don't destroy their children." The crystal pillar burst with light, projecting a massive hologram. It showed Earth surrounded by ley lines, but now Jake could see the truth. The lines formed a pattern identical to human DNA, wrapped around the planet like a protective shell. "Your Majesty," Jake spoke into his communicator, "remember how you said the station's maintenance tunnels matched Earth's ley lines? They're not just similar, they're a scale model. This station isn't a key to destroy Earth. It's a teaching tool." The Queen's response was interrupted by new alarms. The shadower ships had completed their key formation in space, and energy began to flow between them and the station. Sarah's voice turned desperate. "No, you'll ruin everything. We've waited 50,000 years to evolve. Evolution isn't about destruction," Jake said, placing his hand on the crystal pillar. "It's about growth." The pillar responded to his touch, and suddenly Jake understood everything. Every maintenance procedure he had ever learned had prepared him for this moment. The station's systems weren't just keeping life support running. They were teaching humanity how to maintain Earth's greater systems. 3 minutes until full station activation. Jake looked at his reflection in the crystal pillar. His eyes now shone with perfect balance, light and shadow working together, just like the station's systems, just like Earth itself. "Commander Zex," he called through his communicator, "remember how I fixed the life support by reversing the power flow? What if we did that with the whole station?" The Queen's voice returned, excited. "The maintenance protocols. They're not just procedures, they're lessons." Jake finished. "Sarah, you asked me to accept who I really am. I'm a maintenance worker. And Earth isn't a weapon to be triggered, it's a system to be maintained." He pressed both hands against the crystal pillar. Every maintenance tunnel in the station lit up, power flowing in new patterns. The black devices Sarah planted began to change, shadow energy transforming into light. 2 minutes until full station activation. Sarah's scream echoed through the speakers. "What are you doing?" "My job," Jake said. "Maintaining balance." The crystal pillar pulsed with power. Outside, the shadower ship's key formation began to glow. But instead of darkness, it now shone with the same mixed energy as Jake's transformed key. Through the window, Jake saw a figure floating in space between the ships. Sarah, her human disguise gone. Her true form a beautiful blend of shadow and light. "You don't understand." Her voice was different now, ancient and tired. "Earth's evolution must be guided, controlled." "No," Jake said, as the crystal pillar's light grew brighter. "It needs to be maintained. There's a difference. 1 minute until full station activation." The Queen's voice rang with authority through the station speakers. "All personnel, prepare for evolutionary acceleration." Jake smiled as the power of both human and shadower technology flowed through him. Time for some unscheduled maintenance. The station began to shine like a new star.